a three-man weave this week. Unfortunately, I am your host, Jim Root, only joined by one Matthew Cox. Mateo, you did miss out on our top 100 player reactions, so we're letting Kai take a little vacation. I need to find a vacation of my own. But are you ready to be back into the rhythms of a real episode after last week's glorious Jeopardy competition?
Yeah, it feels weird, Jim. We'll actually have time to think about our answers and responses as opposed to being on our toes the whole time. Just not my best playground for summoning my best college basketball takes. But it was, yeah, the Jeopardy episode will live on for, I think when we're 75 in retirement homes. If the podcast cease to exist, we'll at least do an annual show. We'll fly in Russ to some place. So glad that tradition has continued. Just a fun apex of the summer kind of content lull.
Yeah, we'll have to pay off Russ to continue to do it as he's fathering children. He's,
Mm,
again, due
time is
date coming up
precious.
real shortly. But hey, Matt, you're going to be a dad as well, sympathizing with him in the
That's right.
future as you guys
Forgot
take
about that.
care of your offspring. But folks, we got a wonderful, wonderful episode for you. Matt and I are going into what we're calling the obscure all-star teams, which is some random kind of assortments of players and even teams and coaches. What we'll have like the are we sure they're good all stars, which is a coaches category. So we're going to get into that. All kinds of various. I think we've got 12, and I did a surprise 13th category just for Matthew that I think he'll enjoy at the end. So we're going to get into a bunch of different teams in that regard. We are going to get a little Roots roundup to start the show after not having that last week. Catch up on a few bits of news, a couple random notes, get Matt's opinion on a couple takes or happenings in the world of college basketball. And then we're going to holster reviews because Kai's usually our reviews are. So we're going to save that for when he gets back. Maybe we'll have like 10 reviews for the episode where Kai returns, but we're not going to actually hit those. So if you have left a review, don't worry, we will still get to it. I'm sure there's 800 glowing reviews of Jeopardy, or there should be. If not, go leave one. But yeah, we'll get to those next week. We're going to leave those out of this particular episode. All right, subscribe to the pod on iTunes, on Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. Subscribe there, download it. We always appreciate that. Shout out to Jay Pitty for the opening tunes. A wonderful, wonderful jam that he's got that gets us hyped for college hoops. And follow us on Twitter at 3MW_CBB. Also on Instagram at the same spot. Can also subscribe to the YouTube channel where this is currently being broadcast live. And again, with Jeopardy, watch it on YouTube. You can get all the visuals. It's way more fun to do it that way. And then Matthew, we've also got to give a shout out to the Burner, the Discord that Shirley Donovan runs that we are a part of, where we are pumping out our top 50 countdown right now, previews of all shapes and sizes coming out there. Lots of great chatter lately, Matthew. Did you want to give the outsiders any hint as to what's been going on?
No, I don't, Jim. I want to keep it all hush hush to kind of add to the exclusivity. So the outsiders become insiders. That's right, folks. Please join. Our preview package is up there. We're kind of in the process of setting up the official authentication. So once that officially goes live, you will have no access. It will be behind the closed doors. But behind the black curtain, Jim, there is a fun smorgasbord of conversation. It's just nice to release previews and get like instant feedback. People kind of chop it up and tell us why we're smart or why we're not smart. Yeah, it's been good. We're a nice little routine now. I am cranking through the WCC. I've already written the American and the ACC, which, God, these conferences have just an exorbitant amount of teams. And it kind of makes like the last three previews per conference. I tend to probably underrate those teams because I'm just so pissed off at the conference by the time I get to like team 16 in the ACC. So apologies to NC State or who did I write last? Boston College. Yeah, tough preview coming up for Boston College, probably.
Yeah, I had a hard time finding something interesting to say on LSU. Just couldn't figure out a narrative with them. Couldn't crack
Maddie
them.
McMahon.
That was
Yeah.
tough for me to get. But hey, we are mowing through those. Like you said, I'm through Big Ten and through SEC, going through the A10 now. Those are in there, and it is Discord is very much a open, free flowing conversation, more so than even like Twitter, where people would reply and have takes on our top 50 countdown. This is an easy back and forth. Lots of people with opinions in there, some strong, strong opinions developing in the Discord. Fun to check out. We've also got a couple AMAs coming up that I think are worth checking out. The founder of CBB Analytics, more to come there on CBB Analytics. Nick Canova will be in there for an AMA, and then Oakland head coach Greg Kampe, the conqueror of
Let's
Calipari
go.
last NCAA tournament, longest tenured coach in Division One, not the longest D1 tenure, as we learned on the
That's
Jeopardy
right.
episode. But he has been there forever, and he's surely going to have a lot of great insight. So check that out. Get in there, be able to ask a question of Mr. Campy.
Yeah, I got Todd Kowalczyk, got Greg Campy, hoping trying to get another few more coaches, especially we like kind of getting those mid-major guys who are pretty frank, candid. They don't not going to hold anything back. And since we've talked to so many of them during our preview process in years past, I think we kind of have a good feel for, who's going to come in and actually provide some insight as opposed to reciting the company line. So yeah, obviously Greg Campy and Todd Kowalczyk, two guys cut from that cloth.
Yeah, the power conference coaches that we did not get to speak to because Rob Dossner and Jeff Goodman are ball hogs. How dare you? Took the big leagues. No, it's more so that they are very guarded and they don't really let people in as frequently as a lot of the mid-major coaches.
They've
So
probably been burned before, maybe. You have a little
yeah,
more maybe one bad incident.
jaded.
It's like, why
They're
would I
jaded.
even yeah, exactly. Why would I even or veer off the path of mundane coach speak? There's just too much risk there. But we appreciate the trailblazers that do. We do.
Yes, indeed. All right, hey Matt, let's get into the roundup, which we did not have last week. So yeah, it's time for Roots Roundup. But before we get into the news and notes, Matthias, we've got to give a shout out to CBB Analytics, the glorious and wonderful sponsor of this pod.
That is right, Jimbo. It is the best 30,000-foot view of the college basketball numbers. It's become a Bible on my desktop browser as we've gone through the previews. And for those who are subscribed to the burner, who are looking at our work, I think you're starting to see, hopefully, some of those super useful shot chart heat maps that I think that we've become, it's become a crutch for me. And I think it's become a crutch for a lot of coaches out there, diehard fans who want to evaluate your team shot selection, player shot selection. And that's just a sliver of the overall portfolio that it has to offer. A lot of the KenPom type statistics are woven in there. You comprehensive on off, who is good when certain players are on the floor, who is not as good when certain players are off the floor. All that good stuff can sort by quality of opponent. How well do certain teams play against certain types of opponents in certain situations? That's what makes it so good. It's a well-rounded, robust offering of all these different ways to sort and slice it. So check it out, folks. For all you users out there, consumers, sign up today. Use the promo code WEAVE. That's WEAVE for a courtesy discounted subscription. And coaches, please email or DM us directly. There is a full-blown pro tier with the holy grail access of data that Nick has for you. He already has a few coaches who have signed up for that. That's what we have access to. It's amazing. So yeah, if you're obviously got a big school budget behind you, they'll write that check. Let us know. We'll set that up for you, Jim.
Yeah, would love it, Matt. It is a invaluable resource as we go through previews. So definitely check that out. Okay, the news, the notes. Matthew, the big storyline in college hoops the past week and a half or 2 weeks has been that schools starting in 25-26, so next season, basketball teams at least can offer 15 scholarships. There's just been an expansion of rosters throughout college sports, and college basketball felt that 2 extra scholarships now available. The question is, Matt, how does this change the landscape? Will coaches actually use this? Does this mean power conference coaches are going to hog more developmental guys, or in an area where we're already seeing some coaches not even fill every single spot, are they just going to leave this a little bit more open, not bother with it, not bother with chemistry? What is your take here, Mr. Cox?
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it just feels like more of the it just goes to the power suck that's happening with the haves and the have-nots. I think the extreme version of this is what you see in college football with D1 versus D2 within FBS versus FCS. FBS has way more scholarships. The bigger programs, you see the split and how you're able to kind of hoard even not just the best talent, but like that mediocre talent that might be a quality player at a mid-major school might go ahead and take a shot at playing or impressing at a bigger school with the budget to throw some courtesy NIL, even though said guy may not play, he might redshirt. I think it just does create more of the power vacuum for the big guys. That's ultimately what is going to happen with this, I think. I don't quite get the benefit for it, Jim, especially for mid-majors and alumni. I don't know what it does for them.
Yeah,
I
can't
don't think
imagine
it gives
they're
them like
super
two
hyped
more
about it.
players on the fringe are going to develop really any better than the guys they have there. So yeah, I don't like it. Not good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot harder for a mid-major to talk a guy into, hey, come be our 15th man instead of playing D2, whereas a power conference and say, hey, come be our 15th man. There's already guys doing that as preferred walk-ons. So like that could expand there. My hope, Matt, one positive potential silver lining here is that it expands the use of red shirts. Guys maybe a little bit more willing to take that red shirt year down the line on the bench. We've seen how fifth year guys can have an impact in college basketball with the year of COVID that a lot of guys have taken advantage of. We all always saw guys that sat out that transferred almost always seem to get a lot better. It really, really helped. So being more willing to take red shirts on a bigger roster size, I would be excited about that possibility. And I'm very curious to see how many coaches actually use it. Now, Matt, I went to Mizzou.
Yeah.
Mizzou already has 15 scholarship players right now. They're paying for two of them with NIL. So obviously, it seems like Dennis Gates is going to use it. Certain coaches definitely will, but maybe not all of them. So curious if it actually does eat up a ton of spots from mid-major
It
guys.
seems like a great opportunity to stash like international guys or
Yep.
reclass guys who come up that are younger from high school ranks. Again, though, it's like that's where I think the big guys who can stomach or can foot the NIL bill at the 14th and 14th player end of the spectrum. If you're a solid fringe top 100 recruit, you could have gone to Ohio or Toledo, played right away, made an impact, or you can go make an extra $100,000. You sit, but you're at a big program. You're probably in position to at least develop and play there next year right away. Again, with sort of like that, you're at the front of the line. Some of those NIL priorities, priority budget decisions. So I wish the former would be happening, but it sounds like you're going to get a lot more again hoarding of talent pipelines with these extra two. Again, it's two scholarships. Maybe it means nothing, but it just says it's blowing that direction, which I still just don't like.
Yeah, I mean, it's 160 roster spots on power conference teams. There's 80 of them. Yeah, two. And suddenly that eats away at a lot of guys on the mid-major level if they do take them. Now, I like that idea of developmental international guys. I think that's the way this should be used, if you're asking me.
Yeah.
Coaching headline, Matt, have you seen this Florida A&M controversy that's going on with the board of
Yes.
trustees and their new hire, Patrick Crary?
Yep.
Uh, okay, so to summarize it for the listener, they hired him ostensibly on Patrick Crary, the new head coach at Florida A&M, on a 3-year, $450,000 contract. Boom, we got it. That's what he agreed to. It's what he signed. Just got to get it approved by the board of trustees. And apparently that was never run by them because now the board of trustees is recommending a 1-year deal, a prove it year, make him show that he is worthy of the job, and then reevaluate next year. And some of the comments from the board of trustees are outrageous, Matt. Like just arrogant. I don't know if they're all rich, but certainly seem like it. Just how did this guy get the job of the list of candidates? I looked down the list and I can't believe he's the one that got it. They hired him from an NAIA school, so I'm sure he didn't have a ton of leverage, but he was successful there. And Florida A&M hasn't won ever. Like they are bad historically, not even a good MEAC or SWAC program. Matt, this feels outrageous. People abusing their power a little bit. Not a fan. I feel bad for Mr. Crary.
Yeah, I actually liked what he said, and he did the opening presser. He did a couple of interviews with like local media down there. He seems like a pretty sharp dude. Just my 2 cents of the vibes. So clearly dysfunction at the top. Late to make the decision to bring him on, and then with the higher ups there, late to approve it. Slash now smearing his approval effectively. Yeah, just upper management dysfunction. I hope Crary. Am I saying it right?
I think it's
Crary.
Crary.
Crary. I hope he crushes it. I hope he silences the suits at the top of the totem pole and gets a good payday. Although I feel like that's going to end up ending in a position of leverage where he just jumps to a big power conference or mid-major assistant staff if he does well this year. I feel like he's going to say,
Screw
yeah,
it.
good.
Screw
Screw
Florida.
FA.
They
Yeah.
don't deserve a good hire if they're just going to jerk them around like this.
There will minus 5,000. There's a different coach here next year. That's just my sense. I just feel like if you're him,
Yeah.
like, why would you want to be like loyal to this, even if it goes well? If it goes well, harness it for yourself and get out of there.
Yep. Agreed. Okay, recruiting news, Matthew. Rare 2024 news this late in the process, and it's because we have a reclass. Jeremiah Fears, younger brother of Jeremy Fears, who is playing at Michigan State. He was committed to Illinois, decommitted, played the summer circuit, and now has committed to Oklahoma. And Matt, we know that the history of smallish, thin reclass guards, especially point guards, is not good. I whisper caution to Mr. Moser here. I know they've got other options. We love our guy Duke Miles, but man, I hope they don't lean too hard on Fears.
Yeah, Oklahoma just the last 3 years, Moser's portal, like the timing of everything's been off. He just hasn't really like gotten a ton of excitement. The guys he's gotten have always been late, and you always look at the roster, it's like, huh? Um, so yeah, I hope he does well. He looks really good on tape, but again, he'll be young, and it's the Big 12, and that's no joke this year. I feel like he will thrive though as a shot making type of dude for Moser, which seems like a pretty big premium of the guys he's usually gotten there. So I don't know. We'll see. A
I
little more
think he
bullish than
will.
usual.
I think he will suck this year,
Suck.
Matt.
Okay, good. Wow.
Like
I appreciate you taking that to the
91 O rating. Yeah, I'll go strong stance there. I think it's going to be ugly. I think they really got to
they're
use
desperate.
Miles and Kobe Elvis and not have to worry
It
about
does
him.
reek of desperation. So maybe I should read between the lines there, given the timing of this.
Yep. Class of 2025. We have a 5-star commitment, Matthew. Darius Acuff, the top point guard on the board, number 4 recruit in all the land, headed to Arkansas. John Calipari still got it. Shout out to the Field of 68's daily newsletter, pointing out just the ridiculous run of point guards that Calipari has had back
Yep.
almost all the way back to Memphis. But every year at Kentucky, it's like, all right, stud, 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 top 5 or top 10 recruit, 5-star. And this is just the latest in a long line of them. Now, Boogie Flan this year is like 4-star, 5-star fringe. DJ Wagner wasn't that good last year, but Acuff sounds like the real deal.
Yeah, crazy. Like with all the tournament lack of success for Calipari, the consistency of his guards and the ease in which he can sell that to recruits. I mean, just look at last year. It's like, hey, look at how fun that was. Remember, we had those guys, Reed Shepard and Dillingham, who are crushing right now. It's like that's an easy sell, and you can take that all the way back to Bledsoe and Wall and Rose and insert. Yeah, it's a pretty impressive list. So I totally get why he has effectively cornered the market with point guards, even though his old teams at Kentucky didn't exactly play super fun, like super guard oriented, but he always just had the talent and he had the guys to kind of point to, hey, listen, had him and he's been good in the NBA. And that's what all the kids basically want. So
Yeah, it's gotten to the point where when in doubt, if you're an NBA team, take a Kentucky guard because they all seem to outperform
yep.
their draft spot. And why not? Why not go play for Calipari again? It's going to be take an Arkansas guard now in the future. Hey, Oklahoma also had a top 50 recruit here, Matthew, in the class of 2025. Small forward Alec Blair headed there. Good job, Porter Moser. That one's better
Better,
timed.
better
Yeah,
Porter. Good.
not a late pull in that one. And then Jack McCaffrey, son of Fran McCaffrey, 4-star small forward, obviously from Iowa, since his dad lives there, his family lives there, but he's headed to Butler. We knew, I think maybe even close to a year ago, that he wasn't going to be going to Iowa. I think he came out and said that was going to be considering other schools. He's going to join his brother at Butler. That's where Patrick McCaffrey transferred to. Matt, is this the beginning of the end for Fran? Is this a nothing burger? Is this here comes Butler? What's your biggest takeaway?
Man, well, if you want to really get to the bottom of this, you can join the Discord and scroll up to 2 days ago. There was a deep, deep discussion on Fran McCaffrey and the Iowa basketball program vibes. It does feel like there is waning interest for Fran given his longevity, and I think just he's at that kind of natural inflection point in his career where it would make sense. I don't know, the last few years haven't exactly been a full head of steam momentum wise relative to some of the very, very, very rich and well endowed NIL budgets that they're battling against in the Big Ten. Yeah, I don't know, Jim. I like, is he coaching there in 2027? I would say probably not, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
2020, yeah, we'll see.
It just kind of seems like he's going in a different direction. He's still recruited pretty well for Iowa of late, so I'm not gonna.
He's recruited as he's always recruited, right? Solid,
Yeah,
developmental, get diamonds in the rough. Like it's not like he's really dropped back in the recruiting. It's just it doesn't feel like he's hitting 5 stars, but he never really had 5 stars anyway.
yeah, no, not at all. It's a developmental program, especially I think they have NIL issues now, so that's gonna have to continue to be that way. Other random news and notes before we get to our obscure all-stars. Hey, Tyson Chicken is releasing Razorback nuggets, Matthew. It
Yeah,
is
that's
for NIL. I mean, it's obviously basketball and football here, but Tyson, a big, big backer of the Arkansas program. They're chicken nuggets in the shape of Razorbacks. This seems like such a no-brainer for companies to do, like a gimmick program or product that fans of that school can just purchase ad nauseum. It gives them a benefit, gives back to the school. It's not just a donation. You actually get something out of it. This seems obvious.
this feels like well, this is gonna also be like broader than just like local stores. Like if they distribute the Razorback nuggets in California.
It,
I don't know how big Tyson's,
I
but I
think they
assume it's
said
national.
the northern Arkansas and Missouri areas
Oh,
where
okay,
so
okay.
where there would theoretically be fans.
I want to see one of the, I want to see Tyson just blow the lid off this thing and just go full national with like Razorback nuggets. So like kids like in Washington are like, why am I eating a Razorback nugget? Like, oh, Arkansas. Oh, maybe I'll go there. And maybe that translates to like a 10% uptick in enrollment, and then NIL is basically influencing everything. But yeah, I love this. I mean, if we're gonna go the NIL route, Jim, I just would like to see the wild, wild west of like advertising marketing campaigns. Like I want to see
Yeah.
crazy stuff in that regard and less about the contracts and the shady stuff behind the scenes. Like, let's actually just be like completely absurd and hilarious with a lot of these, pay per campaigns, marketing agreements, whatever.
Yeah, the stuff actually in the spirit of what NIL is supposed to
Exactly.
be
Right.
rather than
What we
pay
all
for
thought it
play.
was for.
That stuff's a lot more fun. So hopefully we get more of these stories coming up in the future. The Big Ten tournament, Matthew, is headed to Vegas in 2028. Pretty
Mm,
much an inevitability when they added four schools from the Pac-12 and Vegas loses the Pac-12 tournament with the dissolution of that conference. The women's one is actually going there in 2027. Feels wrong to me, Matt, but
it does
it
feel wrong.
was so
Yeah.
inevitable. I'm kind of shrugging.
I got to think the general consensus is even more annoyed by this than we are. I mean, we like Vegas. We're open to Vegas as a cool destination for hosting, but even we're sort of like, it just feels the Big Ten has too much of a purity to it, I think. Like historically for basketball fans, like I think it needs to be in the Midwest. It needs to be in Indy or Chicago. Um,
Yeah,
like they
those are
did
the
it in
best two.
like yeah,
They
the
did
best
it
two
at
for
Madison
sure.
Square Garden. It sucked. I hated that.
It's just weird. Yeah, that's the Big East thing. Get like get off your stay on your own lawn. I agree.
Yep.
Midwest Conference, Midwest placement for that.
Own your strengths here. Don't try to overextend. It can lead to bad things. How do you feel about the Big Ten and ACC only allowing 15 of their 18 teams into the postseason tournament, Matthew? You got to
I like
earn your
it.
way in. You're,
Yeah,
you're you're not down
for
to
sure.
extend that olive branch to figure out your season.
No, no, and I hope that the three of the four teams that are left out are the West Coast teams. Frankly, for the Big Ten, it's just so weird that like they had no leverage. The Pac-12 schools coming in, like why did we have to appease them with a more localized conference? I guess the bigger opportunity is just the money by having it in Vegas for the entire conference, but it
Yeah.
just feels for the other 14 schools, you're just like, what?
Yeah, there's part of I like the idea of being able to reclaim your season at the end of the year, but I don't mind having to clear the lowest bar to have a chance to do that. Like if
Yeah,
you're a
right.
complete disaster like Michigan was last year, no, I'm okay with you not having the Big Ten tournament to figure it out. So yeah, although Matt, for your betting, get to reclaim those teams that maybe get a fresh start on their season,
Yeah, that's
the
true.
second season that
Yeah,
vanishes from a betting perspective.
I
Uh,
think I'll just be so disenfranchised by the bottom feeders in like the big conferences that I'll just be fine with that. It won't be fun for me to keep tabs on those teams anymore. So I'll be happy to cross them off the to-do list.
Fair. Last note here, overseas games are now happening. Louisville had a live broadcast game against Bahamas Select on Tuesday. They won by like 55. Terrible team that had a 12-year-old and a 38-year-old. That's not hyperbole. That's true. That's a fact. So I don't really put a ton of stock into that. And again, most foreign tours don't really have a ton of quality competition or fully teach you about the team, but they are happening. So feel free to go nuts with your takes. We won't overreact to them, Matthew, but I
Oh
know
no,
you
I
want to.
will. No, I will. Yeah, I'm
Oh, I
going to. I
won't.
think Louisville's going to be phenomenal, and that hey, that Bahamas team played UNC Wilmington to like a stalemate. Like, I mean, not a chopped liver team by any stretch of the imagination, just for a comparison basis there. But yeah, I will. I'll have to curb my enthusiasm as we go here. I was certainly too enthused with the Louisville game that I watched. The first half was incredible. It's like the best thing I've seen play in 5 years.
I believe the opponent shot like 1 for 24
A lot
from
of
three
misses.
or
Yeah, a
something
lot of
like that.
misses. Transition
So
defense was questionable. Just overall defense was questionable. But hey, Kenny Payne, I think, would have been up five at the half, then probably a possession or two, sweating it late in the game. So just a new normal for our Louisville
true,
faithful. Happy
true,
for all of you.
true. Good basketball for the Cardinals. All right, Matthew, that is it for the roundup. It's time to talk obscure all-star teams. So for the listeners, we have 12 categories here. We'll clarify them as we go. But Matt and I each prepared teams offline so that we do not know each other's answers. I'm sure we will miss some. I'm sure we will get yelled at in chat or after the fact. But Matt, we did our best to come up with the best possible solutions. I will say for one particular category,
And shouts to the burner gym. They're getting some good they're peppering in some good selections here that we're gonna run through as we go through ours. Because I feel like there's just some like, oh, I didn't even think of that or him or them. And this is good. Yeah, keep telling you.
there was one particular category that was so hard to fill, and it's the second one. It's the portal additions who cooked their new team.
Yep.
I basically just tried to find five. It was hard. We'll get to it, but that one was the only one that I didn't sell my soul for. All right. So just a quick summary. We've got the all name team, portal additions who cooked their current team, the all trader team, the best fit team, the followed my coach team, the all deserves a huge year team, which is about schools, not particular players. So anybody's that have been wallowing in the wilderness. The Are We Sure He's Good team about coaches, the Know Your Role All Stars, the Addition by Subtraction All Stars, the All Mid team, which is schools/programs, the How Is He Still There team, that's coaches, and the How Is He Still in School team, that one is about players. So we've got kind of the coaches and players there in a similar vein. But Matt, we are starting at the top with the all name team, probably the one that people have the most input on or most submissions for. I'm going to put it to, you know what? I'll give mine first, and then we'll see. We'll see
Yeah,
what
I
blanks
actually
you
went
come
with
for.
I didn't go like with overly obscure names. I just went with like cool names. That was kind of my approach here. Just
That's
cool
fair.
names. Yeah. Like
For
I
me,
saw
the first.
someone in Discord was always right. Like always right's a cool name, but it's more gimmicky. So I didn't that was not on my list. But just for an example, that was when I relegated to
Okay,
non-inclusion.
so I probably went a different direction than you. I can't wait to hear yours. My first, I'll just list my five here. Churchill Bounds from
Yeah.
Wagner. I have loved that name for years since I found him as a recruit. Um,
Nice little role player last year at
Churchill
Central
Bounds.
Arkansas, right? Got some minutes. Now he's up in the Northeast.
He
Kind of
was
an
he was
odd
at Wagner
transfer.
last year,
Oh, he
actually.
was.
He
Okay.
was hurt all
He's
season, but yeah, he had been at
okay.
Central Arkansas. He's one of the six scholarship players that like didn't play for Wagner. It's
Yeah, that's
ridiculous.
right. They have like 4.5 dudes on there. Yep.
Po Boy King from NC Central. I mean, that's just too good. Po Boy. Oakland Fort from Northern
Yes,
Arizona.
great call. NAU. I was gonna say they have some good names on that team. Oakland Ford is just a great. I mean, why they brought back every player from last year is the most like crazy. It's like the one team's like, oh, continuity scores,
Yes.
NIL. Oh, Northern Arizona's in that ring. That's weird.
Yep. Supreme Cook from Oregon. Matt
Supreme
is
Cook, no brainer.
bad
Yep,
as I
saw
think
that.
he's not a great player, but Supreme Cook's on there. And then kind of a wild card here. I think it's the only name that could be considered a musical genre. Aussie rap for Portland.
Aussie rap.
His name's actually Austin, but I saw him commit. It was highlighted as Aussie. So Aussie rap. It's a genre for me now. Matthias, shout out to the pilots. Who did you go with?
Love that. I started with Duke Miles. I just think it's like an awesome, basic, simple name. One of my favorite players, but I just think the name is what makes him so endearing to me. I mean, just the Duke Miles pairing is just a great combo there. Gibson Jimerson, jump shooter, fun player. Throw shouts to our guys at SLU. I
It's
love Raleigh Worcester.
would
Oh
you
god, yeah.
say his name would be more fun if he was Jimmer Gibson? I
Jimmer
feel like
Gibson.
Gibson Jimerson is better.
The reverse, the flip flop speaks to the versatility of his game that no one really appreciates. Everyone thinks he's just a jump shooter, but you watch him, there's a little more wiggle to him. So I think it supports the flip floppity there. In Raleigh Worcester, it took me 2.5 years to actually pronounce his last name correct. But I think just inspired by Raleigh Fingers, any Raleigh opening name is going to be good for me. I don't know what the official full name. Rollins, is that your first name if you're going by Raleigh, or is he just Raleigh on the birth certificate? I don't know.
So you don't know either. I just remember Raleigh
I
Fingers'
don't
beautiful
know.
mustache.
Yeah,
Brewers
right. Great
Brewers legend.
mustache. And then a two for name squared, Federico and a Chor. Got to throw a shout out to them. Both going to be key guys this year and potentially household names on legitimate college basketball teams.
So I stayed away from that because it's like a societal thing. Like it's their, you know.
Yeah, no,
I
that's why
just
it's sweet. You don't like it?
okay. I don't like making them curiosities, Matt. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Their games are curious. Their games are fun curiosities. We should
That
be
I agree with.
exploring that
Chor
about them.
Chor's game
So if
is
that's a front door, yeah, it's
wonderful.
so fun. Kiki Tandy, shouts to Kai. Can't be here today, even though it's not Kai Tandy. I wish it was Kai Tandy, but
Love Kiki. That's a good one.
Love Kinky. Should be a good player this year too. That's all I got, Jim.
All right.
Others from
All
the
right.
Discord, the Bana. There weren't a ton of all name mentions. I think everyone
Always
was,
Right was mentioned. Supreme Cook was
yeah.
mentioned.
Jizzle
Um,
James, yeah, Jizzle James is very good. Cincy, shout.
yep. Yep. For a while in the burner, you couldn't type Jizzle. It would reject your
Yeah,
message because it was
yep.
coded as explicit. I think they had to make a point to allow that specifically. So that's a good one.
The people
All
are hankering for some of the more controversial ones. So yeah, let's move forward.
right, Matt, let's go to Portal Editions who cooked their current team or their new team, I guess it is.
Yep.
I'm just going to start by saying I was surprised how many I went through did not have big games. Like RJ Melendez against Mississippi State, terrible. Lynn Kidd against Miami, Florida, not good. Jalen Worley against Virginia, not good. Kario Kendo, Michael Ajayi, Garway Duwal, Gavin Griffiths, Alvaro Cardenas, even Otiga Owe against Mark Pope at BYU was pretty bad. So I had a while. It took me a while to get through some of these, but I'm gonna let you go first. So hopefully I didn't step on any of your toes there.
I know I mentioned a couple in the Discord that uh I did not include here, so I feel like I'm making a pretty big omission. But I'll start with this. This one's a little bit obscure, but just because I've heard Kevin Keats mention it a few times this offseason in discussions, why he went and got two Louisville players, both of which had good games, but not great games. Uh, Bradley Huntley Hatfield and Michael James. Like Keats is convinced he's getting two absolute studs in those dudes. And I'm just like, hey, Kevin, I know they were competitive with you for 25 minutes in a do or die game in the ACC tournament, but like maybe zoom out, bigger picture perspective when we're making player portal analyses. So I had to kind of throw that as an
Yeah,
opening
they were like
dagger
honorable
at
mention for
Keats.
me. I almost I
Okay.
almost put both of them. Yep.
Um, Cam Corrin
He's my
going
number
to
one.
Pitt.
He's my first one.
Dominated. Actually, I remember watching this game too, and it was just like very much like, oh my god, we can't stop Cam Corrin. We have to get that guy, which was pretty impressive for Corrin against Pitt, who had a pretty good front line last year, right? They had a ton of size. Talked about that in their preview a couple days ago in the burner. So I think Capel was very much like, wow, he crushed us inside. We're pretty big inside. I could use that guy, and sure enough, he maybe he did the old penny handshake, wink, wink on the walkthrough. But
Yeah,
yeah,
he
Cam
had Matt.
Corrin.
He had one 20 plus game all year. And it was this one. He had 25 and 8. He did
This
not
was his
hit
best game of the year
20
by
in a
far. Yep.
single other game. Yep. So that one is like the epitome, the perfect example of it.
How about Toby Akani, Jim? You big West Virginia fan out there? Have you been watching Illinois Chicago? But I didn't watch a lot of Flames last year.
This one missed my radar.
Okay, yeah, well, it got there because West Virginia is worthy of discussion. Obviously, Darian DeVries was at Drake last season in the same conference as Okani. Okani had 31 in an OT loss and had 20 in their other meeting the year before. I don't think he's very good, and I heard DeVries like talk like rave about him in one of the local West Virginia shows. That one was like, "Hey, Darren, you're better than this, man. I don't know why you had to go out and take a swing at a guy that just got you in a throwaway late March game in a dead, stupid arena in UIC." But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah, that
he
was
he
weird.
hit he did not score more than 20 the rest of the year, besides that 31-point game.
And then I had yes, my final two are this one I remember vividly because incited this Tyler Perkins spoiler, Tyler Perkins buzz that we had internally. Had 22 and 6 against Villanova in the red and blue victory over the not so supernova. Perkins now goes to the Crosstown Giant, or I guess the program that once was the Giant, and I think he's going to be awesome. I just wish he would have stayed because the whole Neptune transfers have been sort of a black hole of relevancy in the last year and a half.
Yep. Yep. All right, who's the last one?
Oh, Jeremy Roach, not a monster game, but a very high profile, really huge, meaningful game because that was the game which Duke did not have Tyrese Proctor. Duke was up in that game late, and I think Misi took over and Baylor ended up extending. But like Roach was really, really good, had some really big buckets, and I think that certainly played some hand maybe in not that Baylor needs any sort of help directing their attention who they want to go after, but still, I think that does matter a bit.
All right, the three I had, Matthias, and I have one fun honorable mention. I guess the four that you did not have had Corin, Brandon Angel for Oregon had two 20-point games. One of them was against Oregon last year. For Stanford, So I'm sure that one stood out to Dana Altman. Colby Rogers, this might have been a stretch. He
I
averaged
saw that.
17 a
Yeah.
game against Memphis. He hit 12 threes combined. I'm sure Penny was like, hey, he seems fun. He can shoot.
They played in that game. What was it? 112 to 86, where Memphis just boat raced them at the Coke Center. There were 32 threes made in that game. 19 of 30 for Memphis and 13 of 25 Wichita State. Just an absolute offensive barrage.
Yep, that'll do. That'll get you excited or get your coach excited
And Colby had
about
20. Yeah.
picking you up. Tyler Bilodeau from Oregon State to UCLA. He had an 18-5 game. He had I think the one that probably got McCronin was he had 10 points and 14 boards. Cronin's probably like, oh, you can rebound. Please come join my team with Adem Bona heading out of town. And then Aaron Scott, Matthew, from North Texas, he had 13-7 against St. John's. And if you recall, it was in that tournament where
Yeah,
Patino
that's
ranted
right.
about how
53 to
slow.
52 final score. So it may as well have been
Yeah,
30 points basically on an adjusted
yeah.
basis. Yeah,
And
I
he
do remember
ranted
that.
about how bad his defenders were, Patino did. And Aaron Scott is a monster
Yep.
defender. So I'm
Yep.
sure he's just like, wow, I'd love to coach a guy like that. He'd be great on my roster. And then one quick honorable mention, Luke Goody, 3 for 8 from three, 11 points against Indiana. Woodson just had to be like, guys are allowed to take eight
Yeah.
threes in a game?
Yep.
What is this? So
Yep.
I know Goody's going back home. He's from Indiana, so that's part of it. But I'm sure Woodson's mind was blown.
Goody just looked too much like Miller Kopp, who was like such a beloved Indiana role player that Woodson obviously loved. So I think that maybe had a part in that too. Like that's the guy I missed. That's the guy we need this year. That's the guy that looks like him for next year. We're getting him.
Yep. Love that. All right, Matt, the all trader team is next. I will submit my nominees to you first. This one, I think there were some obvious choices, so hopefully we have some overlap. First of all, Roddy Gale, Ohio State to
Yeah.
Michigan, the game in basketball or in football. Can't cross over that border. I just saw an article about him. Like, I was taught to hate Michigan, and now I'm here. And all right, well, we'll see how it goes for you,
Kids
Mr.
don't care
Gale.
anymore about that. It's so sad. They just don't care.
No. Speaking of which, the Iron Bowl Hoops edition, Aiden Holloway going from
Yep.
Auburn to
Had him as well.
Alabama. Could not resist putting that on there. I almost didn't go with Kobe Johnson, Matthew, from USC to UCLA because there's a coaching change involved. I guess Gale had that same thing happen, but it's still crosstown rival LA. They're still in the same conference in the Big Ten. So Kobe Johnson, UCLA from USC.
I had him too. It's funny that Mick Cronin, like you would think he would be like questioning that guy's loyalty, making a rivalry change just because Cronin's so old school. But yeah, Cronin's already compared him to
Jalen Clark. Yeah,
Jalen
it's
Clark.
very
Yeah,
much
he
like the
loves Kobe.
Patino Aaron Scott thing. Like this guy can play
Exactly. Yep.
defense. Holy crap, get on my roster. Kadari Richmond, Seton Hall to St. John's, hired gun going across to a
Check as
conference
well.
rival, not the same amount of money that St. John's could offer. And then I had a tough time with my fifth spot, Matthew. You could go with Tyler Perkins, who you mentioned, going
That's
from
true.
one Philly rival to another. Villanova also getting Jameer Brickus from LaSalle, another
Yep.
Philly rival. Luke Goody, worth mentioning here, Illinois to Indiana. Malik Brown is a name I settled on here.
Ooh.
Syracuse to Duke. Those two schools are not big fans of each other.
No,
They
they're
played some
not.
good games over the years, conference rivals. There's no coaching change involved. Brown just matriculated his way down to
Yep.
Durham. And I think that one is worth mentioning. Also, Stojakovic going from Stanford to Cal. That was, I think, a
Yeah.
good one too.
Right. I had Jim in your Philly theme. You took four of my. I think the first five are fairly obvious. Like yes, no brainers. And then I actually threw in Lynn Greer, going from St. Joe to Temple, where his I believe dad is an assistant. I think, where him
Yep.
and Jamal Mashburn are going to be like the two nepotism prodigal sons, in Temple's new backcourt this year. Kind of a fun little thing if you're into the whole Temple thing.
Jamal Mashburn will be mentioned in another category later.
Ah,
So excited
good,
about
good,
that.
good,
Little
good.
teaser. But yeah, Matt, that was good. I'm glad we had some overlap there. I think there were some very obvious candidates. The best fit team. This is one where we might have zero overlap. A lot of
Yeah,
different
there's
ways you
so
could
many
go with
options here.
this.
So many
Yep.
options.
We don't have to fully justify all of them. And if you want to like say your names in a quick sentence as to why, I think that'll be sufficient.
Josh Jefferson, Iowa State. top of mind for me, Jim. I posted St. Mary's today. Shouts to St. Mary's getting the top 50 nod in the countdown. Jim, I'll also give you credit here as you reframed my outlook on this player. Davion Smith, Utah to St. Johnny's. I think he's going to thrive in that chaotic system, assuming that's kind of how Patino evolves this year. Super impressed with what I saw at Utah this year. Like they needed him so badly, and I thought he would just be kind of a throw-in supporting piece next to my guy Raleigh Worcester. Second mention of Raleigh Worcester on this podcast today. Trey Donaldson, just an awesome
there we
guard
go.
who can control the offense, smart extension of coach on floor, very much like the guards I think Dusty May had at FAU, right? Like his best players weren't the ball handlers. They were just really solid, like Boyd and Greenlee and Gaffney. I think Holloway's perfect for what Michigan's going to be doing from a balance perspective. And then how about that Ruben Chinyelu for Florida? Just Florida being kind of a big man whisperer factory. And I love the Washington State big man defectors. I think Kyle Smith's had a pretty high hit rate with finding diamonds in the rough, big guys that can really expand their games, evolve. I think he might be kind of a breakout guy there down in Gainesville.
I like that, Matthew. I don't think we
There's
had
so many better
overlap.
ones. Man, there's a lot of good. There's so many good
No,
options here, actually.
none of them are better than the others, Matthew. It's all beauty in the eye of the beholder.
There you go. Thank you. Very
I went
democratic.
JT Toppin at Texas Tech. I
Had
think
him on
he's
the
a
watch list. Yeah.
perfect Grant McCaslin fit. Guy like Aaron Scott, who he used to coach, only a little bigger and more power conference equipped. I think that one's great. I don't even know if he's going to start at Alabama, but Matt, Chris Youngblood is
Yep.
just such a lethal piece for Nate Oates. He takes almost half his shots are threes. He makes over 40% of them. He's big enough to actually play some defense and get to the rim a little bit too for the rim and three system they play. So I love that. Kobe Brea to Kentucky, a 50% three-point shooter in Mark Pope's bombs away system. I'm on board there. That one makes sense to me. It adds up. Milos Uzan to Houston. There's some fit there just in terms of lineup, like needing a point guard. He's a long defender. He's not the same as Jamal Shed, definitely not. But he's longer. He can just fill right in there and defer more to Cryer and to Sharp. So I kind of like that one. Almost went with Ryan Conwell of Xavier. Could have. Like Nelly Davis to Arkansas makes a ton of sense to me too.
Yeah, agree.
I went Victor Locken to Clemson, Matthew.
I don't hate this.
Coming into the PJ Hall spot, he's not a huge shot blocker, but he can disrupt you at the rim, play in a smart, disciplined defense the way Brownell does it, coming from Wes Miller's system. Solid interior scorer, looking to add the three-point stroke a little bit. Locken going to Clemson, I think he's going to have a big year.
Yeah, Clemson doesn't really have like super high flying big guys. They tend to be more ground bound type guys. So I kind of like Locken there.
Yep. That's it.
Oh yeah, I had one more. Sorry, I wanted to mention Tyron Moore for UAB. Kind of to get outside the power conference. I think he's going to average 20 plus a game. Be the Jelly Walker 2.0, if you will, for Andy Kennedy and the Blazes.
Love it, Matthew. Okay, this is the next team. The all followed my coach team. I think there are 4 locks. Like if you don't have 4 of them, I will be dismayed. Tucker DeVries, lock.
Yes.
Great Asubor, lock.
Lock.
Vlad Golden,
third.
Lock. And Robbie Avila, lock.
4. Yep.
Okay, I think those 4 have to be there. What direction did you go for your 5th spot?
So you said Kobe Brea for Kentucky. I took Jackson Robinson following coach to Kentucky.
He was my 5th.
Same thing. Okay,
there we go.
Well, we're done. We aced that test. Nice job. Yeah, he's gonna come. He's gonna light it up for UK. He's already been mentioned a few times by Pope in the offseason stuff. So, I threw in a courtesy honorable mention collective vote for the entire Washington State team. I just love that they basically just packed up and went across town over there to Spokane, and they're going to be awesome under David Riley. But basically the same team.
They went to Pullman. They went to Pullman, not Spokane. I got to save you.
Pullman, thank you.
No, they went from Cheney. Stop it.
Cheney to Pullman. Spokane.
This has been geography of Eastern Washington lessons from 3 Men. It's
confusing. It's like I'm Matt, Idaho, and it's tough.
Yeah. I put them, the Eastern Washington to Wazoo guys, in honorable mention. I put Rain Smith in honorable mention, Isaiah Swope honorable mention, and the Kentucky to Arkansas guys. I don't love any of them individually, Tiero, Ivisic, and Wagner, but 3 of them following Calipari is helpful. You could also
We
say the
might be,
recruits if you want to, if you want
yeah,
to.
we might be underselling that trio. They could be really good. At least one of those guys could be really, really good. So
It's certainly possible. All right, Matthew, the all deserves a
I'm
huge
light here,
year
Jim.
team.
This is where I'm
Yeah.
light. And I needed to just think more about this because this is like kind of a subjective who am I rooting for? Did you go with team? You went teams, didn't you?
Yep, this is teams. And I
Okay.
yeah, I went with just kind of generally teams and fan bases that I think have been through hell recently or over the
Fair.
past decade or so that deserve a big year. Would you like me to go first since you say
Yeah,
you're
go
light?
first.
Okay.
Because I actually
Okay.
have a few players I wanted to throw in here as well. Just
Okay.
players that like are easy to root for, guys.
I started with Louisville because Kenny Payne.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. It's a fan base that loves their team and deserves to be better than what Kenny Payne had them. They were a laughing stock.
Can I push back from the perspective just a little bit? I'm not gonna you're right. I want to put myself in the fan of a mid-major program or fringe high major program without the war chest of assets that Louisville has. Louisville was always going to be back the second they fired Kenny Payne and will always be back in mattering just because they have such a strong interest and huge following and a bad coaching hire would not set them back like 10 years. Like I think they could just, scrap Kelsey in 2, 3 years, pack it up, pay somebody else really, really good, and they're still gonna be fine. So you're right, but I still feel like I don't feel that bad for the Louisville Kenny Payne thing. Like, yeah, that was
Yeah.
terrible and a laughing stock, but you guys were always going to be right back to relevancy once you got that cloud out of there. And now he's
Okay.
gone.
You mentioned mid majors. I kept this pretty much power
I did
conference. I
too.
mean,
No, I did
every
too.
mid major deserves an awesome year. I
You're
would
right.
just say
You're right.
that.
Yeah.
So,
We're so
number
God, for the people.
yep,
Thank you
number
for doing
two, Rutgers. They have one tournament win in the Ken Pom era, and now they have two top five recruits. They have a coach who has built them into at least semi-relevance, who's got that only
that.
tournament
Yep.
win. It's an awesome fan base, great home court advantage. So Rutgers, I think, has to be there. Stanford, Matthew, Stanford.
Mm,
Not that they're destined for a big year, but Jared Haas had to be really frustrating. Johnny Dawkins only made one tournament. He did go Sweet 16 that year, but between those two tenures, it's like 16 years and they made one tournament. That's not great.
I have Stanford mentioned in a later section.
Okay. I actually don't know what it'll be. Vanderbilt, afraid of the Stackhouse era. I don't get the sense that he was overly likable for the fans. He just kind of seemed like he was mad all the time, almost a Penny Hardaway. Why am I doing this job? They haven't won a tournament game since 2012. So I wanted to include Vanderbilt.
I have them as well. They also did add to that they had to watch Bryce Drew go down to Grand Canyon and absolutely crush it while he
Ooh, good
was
point.
basically shown. I mean, we had a debate in the burner about this was, did Drew deserve another year? Was he wrongfully fired? 0-18 in the SEC is obviously not a great look. But your coach is going to come back after going 0-18 in the conference. So I don't know. I think you add that to the list of like, yeah, you're a Vandy fan. It's been rough lately for
Yep.
sure.
Yep. The last one I went for my top five is Wake Forest. Have
I
not
like
won a
Wake.
tourney game since 2010. Now, the one caveat is the last time they won a tournament game, they fired the coach. They fired Dino Gaudio after winning a tournament game. Now they haven't done it since. And I think they already went through the karma for that though by hiring Jeff Bzdelik and being horrendous. Then going to Danny Manning, who did make a tournament, but only a first four game and lost. Now they got Steve Forbes has worked their way back up there. So I went with Wake, Matthew. I think they deserve a good year.
I agree. I actually almost put Georgia Tech and Wake in like this two for pair of ACC programs that used to be like awesome, awesome, and just really haven't been as awesome in more recent stints. So I will add into yours. Where's my list here? I just lost it. Oh, there we go. So I did a
Attention is
twofer
killing me.
of the. I know, sorry, my notes are scattered here. I did a twofer in the A10 with Dayton and SLU. I think Dayton and SLU. I know they're not going to be like fight nationally. I mean, Dayton's probably not going to be nationally
Dayton just
elite.
made the tournament. I'm not.
I know, but I just feel like with the COVID thing, um, and the injuries they've had the last few years, the whole
Malachi
Anthony.
Smith, I will give Malachi Smith a specific qualifier. He deserves to be
Okay, that's
healthy.
right. Yeah, I had him for like guys on who I want to have a good year. So,
Yep.
but I think the Anthony Grant stuff too, like with his daughter. So that's an easy one for me. Even SLU has just been kind of in this purgatory of mediocrity. Now they have all of the hype, the coolest most fun offseason coaching hire, debatably, with the coolest, funnest transfer to the Robbie Avila. And so that's a no-brainer for me. Um, Other ones, what else do I have down here?
I just wrote congrats to Purdue and Washington State for getting off this list last year. Washington State getting a
Agreed.
tournament win, Purdue finally getting the Final Four. Nebraska didn't get their tourney win, but they did make the tournament again, so I didn't quite go with them here. But happy for those schools actually having a good season.
I put Villanova. Is that a bad answer? Because they've
I
had so much
no,
success and no one
they've
cares.
won two
Okay.
titles in
Okay.
16 and 18. Two
Yeah.
titles this decade. I don't feel bad
It's
for
been a
them.
pretty sharp pretty sharp decline the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I actually put Iowa on here, Jim. I would like Iowa to be good this year. I think you and I were both sort of like this team could be sneaky decent. And with Fran, they just had so many tough tournament outs, and they've kind of been a punchline now in the Big Ten because they haven't really done anything. Um, and the other one I had was Virginia Tech, a company just or a school that lacks the resources that you need in this day and age. I love Mike Young. That roster isn't super great. It would be nice to see them overachieve this year. So just some
All
kind
right.
of fringe ones. I just feel like it's more of like pity, kind of throwing some pity parties here in my inclusion. So I
Good.
apologize,
Good.
but
Love that.
so I'm trying to make everyone feel involved.
Okay, next category. Are we sure he's good? This team of coaches,
Ton
this
of
is.
good inclusions from the Burr here live that I didn't even think about. Yeah, this could be like a whole podcast in one of itself to
We're
talk
we're
about
gonna
this.
we're gonna be disciplined here though, Matthew. And
Yeah,
I
we
had
are.
a tough time. I tried to look at some guys that I assume in my brain are good that maybe haven't fully put up the results. And I'm starting this off, Matt, by holding mirrors up to both of our third year coaches. Are we sure Dennis Gates is good? Are we sure John Shire is good? I think both of us have to still figure that out. Now they're being graded on different curves. Shire has much higher expectations, but even Gates's tournament team wasn't top 50 in Ken Palm. He then goes 0-19, which takes some real underperformance in close games. He's, their shot selection is shaky offensively. Their defense has been abysmal both first 2 years. I'm worried. I'm officially a little bit worried. I'm not off the train, but I am monitoring it. Where do you stand with
Fair.
Shire?
I guess same-ish boat. I think he's just like his rosters have been so awesome on paper, and it's just you're kind of left wanting all of that, which probably feels unfair. We always say like how it's the top end coaches, it's easier to criticize because your bar is so high. It's easier theoretically to overachieve expectations when you're more in the middle of the pack. So I give John some slack for that. And there's been some questionable just schematic stuff. The first year was bad. Last year was a lot better. I think they kind of settled into what they were doing as a staff too. So I'm more convinced about Shire than maybe Gates, even adjusting for the scale of success, right? Um, because yeah, there's more holes in Gates's resume given his situation where Shire, it's like I think he's sort of a continuation of the machine, and so his floor is naturally higher given what's at his disposal. I don't
Yeah, it's
know.
just it's a big year for Shire because the talent is absurd
And
and he's
this year
got
is
the
the expectations
experience
are as
and youth
crazy. Yeah.
blend that yeah. Who else? Who else did you have on yours?
I like a couple of these. How about Kevin Willard, Jim?
Okay, totally fair. I'm sure he's mid.
I think I kind of agree. How about Ed Cooley, Jim?
Yeah, yeah,
That one's
certainly
actually a tougher
deserves to be here.
conversation, and I'll throw Kim English in there. Well, I know actually I don't want to. I'm tired of hearing you and Kai bash Kim English, so I'll step up for my
No, you
promise
do
faith
it.
there.
Yeah,
But
you do it. I won't say a word.
I'm still more bullish on Kim than you are. So I'm not sure he's good. I am more sure than you are, but I'm still not that sure. I think Ed Cooley is a more fascinating discussion, um, given what he did at Providence, where he elevated it to before he left, where he's at now, and where I think that Georgetown thing's going to go, which is nowhere, frankly. I really just don't see much momentum being built there. So that one will age. We'll see how that one ages. Um,
That's an
Jerome
interesting
Tang, Jim.
dichotomy because one is benefiting from the other.
Yes, I agree with that. Totally. Um, how about Jerome Tang, Jim?
Yeah, I saw this one mentioned in the burner, and I realized it's kind of I've just accepted in my brain that he's good, but I don't think last year was. I don't think last year was up to their standards or up to what that roster could have been.
And now we'll have another year of Scott Drew without Tang and without Jacobs now at FAU, which is sort of like another disciple of Drew, where we can really kind of pick apart. Basically, what we want to do is like, okay, that guy was the reason that that guy was good, which is obviously it's a little too that's overly simplistic, but that
Yeah,
is sort
yeah.
of you get more of those pieces that fragment. You get can actually make these type of tells, and then I'll throw the last burner inclusion here, which was my number three, Tony Bennett, Virginia. And that just feels mean. I don't want to say yes, he's a good coach. I don't know. I almost retract bringing that up as a premise, but it's worth discussing if you'd like to discuss it.
I would like him to modernize his offense. That is the last bad thing I'll say. I,
Yeah, I won't even say that.
what was Virginia before Tony Bennett? And then he had
Yeah,
like
right.
8 straight top 10 Ken Pom teams.
I think a banner buys you a 1 to 2. I'd say it buys you 2 decades of goodwill for 98% of programs in
Yeah.
all
I
sports,
also
in
don't
both
I don't
college
think
and football and
Virginia's
basketball.
it does not appear Virginia's basketball NIL is all
It sounds
that
like they
and
just gotta
bang.
they stepped it up a little bit based on pressure, based on Bennett applying some pressure. I think Bennett was like, "Hey guys, if you're not going to back me here, I'm ready to walk away." I think Mick Cronin did that at UCLA too. By the way, he was really unhappy with their commitment for how what the most prestigious program in the history of college basketball. So I
Yep.
think the coaches have some pull in that, which is probably a good thing.
All right, these aren't power conference teams. I have two honorable mentions that I think are just at least worth an eyebrow raise. But are we sure Chris Holtman's good? I keep kind of
Mm,
defending, but he had a ton of resources at Ohio State, and they just kept losing close games and not living up to expectations. And
yeah. No,
I remember our boy Alan Boston did not like him, even dating back to like his Butler days. He was always out on Holtman, which surprised me.
he it inherited really good jobs. So I think a good career man. Maybe like Oliver Purnell, always taking the right job at the right time. Impossible to know if you're actually good or not. I think he will be good at DePaul, but we still won't learn anything about him in this is he good or not debate because I think he's going to have to probably go back to like a bona fide power conference job and succeed there at a rate that he didn't at Ohio State more consistently to really like prove it. That's just where his bar is now, which is kind of unfortunate, right? Like that's where his like Tom Crean kind of got to that point where it's like you're now judged at this level, and if you can't surpass that, we're not going to ever be able to call you good emphatically or very good. I don't know.
Yep. And now two from the A10. Maybe I'm being a bully, but Frank Martin, Matthias, I'm wondering if you're willing to hear me out here.
Yeah,
He made one tournament at South Carolina. One. And I know he went to the Final Four, and
tough
that was
program.
good. But and then at UMass, he did elevate them in his second year, but that was his first 20-win season since the Final Four in 2017. And I know we can say tough program, but Lamont Paris made a tournament, got a 6 seed his second
Lamont
season.
Paris is very good. Yeah,
So I think he's good, but I don't know. I think people love him, and that's helped his reputation.
I agree. He's also had some really good players. I mean, he kind of came up through more of like a grassroots type of that was sort of like his rise. I don't know. That's a fascinating discussion, like where Frank Martin ranks in the totem pole of coaches and how much I still respect him more than you. I think I'm more certain that he's good, but I think your points are fair. Like, he probably wouldn't be at UMass if he really was that good right now, if we're just being honest about it. So it's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean his Ken Pom ranks last 5 years South Carolina 80, 70, 69, 124, 99. Like
Yeah, I know. It
that's
was bad.
it's not SEC.
Had some talented teams
Um
there too. He told me
yep,
most talented team he had in the last 2 years.
yep. Anthony Grant, maybe a little harsh, but his only two
Now,
tournament caliber
move
teams
on. No, I'm
were
just kidding.
NBA caliber big guys, like first round draft picks. And he got fired in the SEC at Alabama. I don't know. He's solid. I think sometimes he leaves me wanting more. The other two I want to mention, Matt, era specific. Dana Altman in Oregon. He's had a lot of injuries, but
Mm-hmm.
he used to be the portal master, kind of akin to Eric Musselman, and now obviously people have caught up with that. And then Thad Matta at Butler. I know they are very limited in resources,
Totally great
but I think
comparison
we've
there.
been
Yeah.
excited to have him back in the coaching world. He was incredible for years and years at Ohio State. But in the specific era right now, maybe these two aren't quite what they used to be in the reputations we had them at.
I totally agree with that. With both those. I'll throw in Chris Beard.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Um,
With no
kind of like
charge,
again,
can't play defense.
yeah, like just like the whole way last year, it was just such a bizarre season last year. Like they were not covered at all because A of the Chris Beard stink with the off the court stuff, and then B, they just were beating really bad teams for a while by like 2 points. And so everyone was like, fraud, 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 fraud. And they got to the SEC and it kind of turned out to be somewhat true.
Yeah,
And so now it's like I don't know what to think about Chris Beard going into year two there. So that one's weird to me too.
I like
Um,
it. Now let's move on. We got
let's go. Yeah, yeah.
five more
Sorry.
categories. We've already gone an hour, and there's only two of us. We ramble. That's what we do. That's kind of the three
Shit.
men we go to.
God.
Know your role, all stars, Matthew. I didn't even do an honorable mention, so there's going to be people we missed. But my five: Stevie Mitchell of Marquette,
Nice.
Latrell Wrightsell of Alabama,
Very
reputationally
good.
their best perimeter
Needed him last
defender.
year.
Did not shoot the ball a lot, but he made it every time he did. Guillermo Diaz-Graham at Pitt, David Gasson at Kansas State,
Good
a
for you getting
popular
Gassan on there. Gassan's a lock for me.
popular name in the burner as a role player, and Javier Francis of Houston, although I would like him to make more free throws. He and
Yeah.
Gasson make more free throws is usually a key part of know your role. But that's the five I went with. Who'd you go with?
I added Ben Middlebrooks to NC State. I think he's a kind of a nice little player. Nick Jourdain, Memphis. Um, and where's
Matt
one
just
more?
naming guys from teams he wrote. I'll have you know, folks.
Yeah, I know it's always easier to go that direction. Oh, and then Matumbo, journalism Matumbo, Mr. Nicholson at
Oh,
Northwestern.
I was like, you better not mean Ryan Matumbo because that guy
No, not Ryan
stinks.
Matumbo. Yeah, he's just
Yeah,
a know your spot on the bench all-star, which that's what he
yeah,
should be doing this year.
yeah. Nicholson's a good call. Big fan. I can't believe they survived him and Barry getting hurt at the end of last year. That
I know.
was
That, I mean,
outrageous.
Chris Collins, Levy, are we sure he's good? Is the opposite. Like, are we sure he's not good? If
Yeah,
that's maybe he's
he's
probably past that at this point. I don't
he's
know.
kind of like had the Scott Drew graduation from that
Yes,
conversation.
he's in the stage before Scott Drews. Exactly.
Yep.
He'll get there.
Yep.
Mm.
All right, Maddie, the addition by subtraction all stars. I called it AKA the Gigi Jackson team because South Carolina was ultimate addition by subtraction without him. And I'll just start with somebody, JAF in the burner mentioned, Pop Isaacs, the 92 O
Agreed.
rating on
Yeah, it's a good
massive
call.
usage. Leaving Texas Tech, I think he will be an addition by subtraction all star. Arthur
I
Kaluma.
think he'll actually be a good player for Creighton, Jim. That's like I wanted to reframe an offshoot of this team of like the perfect for all parties. Like team
Yeah, right.
without him
He's not
better
going to
off, team that
be,
got him better off, and he'll be better there. I think that
he
was a
should,
good for all parties.
he shouldn't have to be giant usage the way he was at Texas Tech. Hopefully he
Yep.
won't be. But yeah, Creighton adjacent Arthur Kaluma. I think every team gets better when he leaves. So
Lock.
K-State getting him off of there is a positive. This is where Jamal Mashburn came up for me. I think
Yep.
just New Mexico needed to hand the keys to Donovan Dent. Now it's a little easier to do that, him out of there with his high usage gone. Posh Alexander leaving Butler. We talked about it a little last year. I
Yeah, it
didn't
feels too
love
obvious, but
him
I
for
agree.
them. And now he's back down to Dayton, better level for him. Also, kind of like what you're saying, good for all parties involved. I was tempted to say Zurich Phelps leaving SMU because I just don't
I wrote it down
think
and
he's
crossed it off,
very
but
good.
yeah.
Okay. I went with Mark Armstrong leaving Villanova. He was just bad and decided he was a pro, which I think tells you what his mindset was of how good he thought he was. So getting him off the team,
Yeah.
look, it's still Villanova, it's still Kyle
Fair.
Neptune, but I think that's positive.
Jim, shocked you didn't bring up Primo Spears, so maybe because he's just so irrelevant that doesn't really matter. But I threw Primo Spears in there.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Um,
Every
where
team
is
that he
he?
leaves
Who's he
gets
playing
better.
for now? I don't even know who's playing for right now.
UTSA, which Austin
Okay,
Clunt's just trying to get some
great.
numbers, unfortunately.
Uh, Kirk Risa? Yeah, no,
Maybe a
Uh,
good fit for everybody. I think playing in an offense where he doesn't have
that
to
could be it
be
works out
the
better, right?
guy.
That
Yep.
I definitely think he's in our situation now for degrees. I still don't think he's a winning player. This one's kind of a pet one for me, a pet pest. Ezra Azar from East Carolina is going to be at Utah playing, in a
Oh yeah, you
pretty
don't like this
good
guy at
front
all.
lawn. He's just not. I'm telling you, he's not good. He's an empty calorie guy. He doesn't impact money at all. He's like an undersized big, scores around the block. To like, no, don't like this game. And then you already said Kaluma and Isaacs. Someone said Tyrese Hunter in the Discord. I'll throw him as a consideration. I think I like him more than the masses, but sounds like Texas fans were pretty sick of his shot selection and just sort of lack of efficiency last year.
If he just decides to be, I said, if he's Stevie Mitchell, like if he decided to play that role, he would be awesome. It's just I don't know if he's going to rein it in at Memphis senior year, thinking it's just like, oh, now it's my team in the AAC.
Right.
I'm just kind of worried about that
If you're
push
an Iowa
pull with
State
usage.
fan, it's pretty cool to think that you'd probably rather have Taman Lipsey, who is a sophomore, versus Tyrese Hunter, the stud freshman point guard you had many, many moons ago, and that now is kind of like regressed or plateaued.
Yep.
Anyway.
All right, Matt,
Next.
that brings us to the all mid team. And this
Yeah,
is
this is
teams and
good.
programs. This like this isn't I'm not trying to find bad teams here. This is inspired by the Memphis discussion yesterday in the burner. Are they mid? Well, they have two NCAA bids in a decade and only one win. So that feels pretty mid to me. They're
Yeah.
never terrible, but that they were my first team, Matthew. They were the inspiration for this group. Who else did you include?
NC State.
Oh, they just made a Final Four. I
I
can't put
know.
them
I'm
there.
sorry.
I DQ'd anybody with an Elite Eight or Final Four appearance.
Nope.
That's
NC State is a mid program all the way through. I think it's one thing Duke and UNC fans agree on, like just the annoyance that NC State is always a thorn in, more so in North Carolina's side. But I just think the way, I don't know, the fact that like everything Keats is saying this offseason just kind of like makes it sounds like they expected to do what they did last year, and it didn't seem as like appreciative of the insanity of good fortune that swung their way. Um, so I don't know. It just seems a little bit like it's more of an indictment on Keats. I'll say that. UCLA and USC. I just think I have a strong bias against these
oof.
Pac-12 programs. Yeah.
I cannot agree on UCLA.
Okay. I wrote sorry, Mick, in parentheses, and I think they're starting to commit some money to it. But like, I just think for a program that is among the blue bloods of the bluest of bloods, to have like NIL issues and like not exactly sterling attendance numbers. Like it's a very well followed and supported program, but it's a notch below a lot of premier programs. I don't think it should be. I think it's just a reflection of the lack of interest on the West Coast with some of the LA teams.
Are we
USC, same thing in both football and basketball. Just
we took this in different directions. Mine are more results based
okay.
in terms of mid. So
That's fair.
I guess I like that. I like that we're having a different perspective. Who else you got?
I put Stanford on there too, Jim. They've been so pedestrian and so okay with being mediocre because I think they're just like the academia thing has gotten that's what the school cares about, I think, and the people that are associated with it, and slowly but surely both basketball and football have but were once awesome, right? David Shaw, Stanford, Chris McCaffrey. I mean, look back at the Stanford glory days when Mark Madsen was there. It's just been a pretty steady fall from grace across the board. Um, so yeah, I guess shots fired at the Pac-12 a little bit for me.
Yeah, look at you. Hey, that's okay. Pac-12's dead. There's nobody to
Exactly.
defend their honor. I will start with a Pac-12 school just to keep it going. Arizona State.
Great answer. Great
Three
answer.
NCAA bids in the last decade, and all of them were in the first four. There's nothing more mid to me than getting sent to Dayton anytime you make the tournament. None of those times did they make the round of 32. Maybe that makes them sub level to what we're discussing here, but I just could not include them. And they have the same thing going with Haas, where they've like sort of accepted that this is their level over and over with Bobby Hurley, but maybe their infusion of new NIL money will help. We've seen that happen this offseason. Virginia Tech, I know you said them as a team that deserves the good year, and they have made the NCAA tournament 5 out of 10 years in the last decade, but only in one of those years did they win a game. They went to the Sweet 16 in 2019, the team that almost beat Zion, as they are remembered.
That's right. Yeah.
But those are only two wins in that entire decade. Mississippi State, three bids in the last decade, no wins, no NCAA tournament wins. They're rarely bad, but they're kind of on the ascension. Two of those three bids are in the last 2 years with Chris Jans, so I think they could escape this pretty soon.
I removed all SEC schools from my. I just feel like that they're all exempt from being mid for some reason. Again, mine was less results based than yours, so probably not the same for you.
And lastly, Oklahoma State, three NCAA bids, only one win, but they generally haven't been terrible.
Yeah,
Eh, they're just
fair.
So hopefully Steve Lutz can elevate them there.
Actually, I'll put Georgia in the mid category of all the
Oh,
SEC
they're worse
schools.
than mid.
Yeah, is that even okay? I guess I think every SEC school's above mid except for Georgia and probably Vanderbilt. We can't Vanderbilt has to be in that group too,
Yeah,
or
I mean,
below,
looking
even
at it from
below.
from my results thing, they're worse than mid. From your lens
Yeah,
of like resources, support, et cetera, maybe that's where Georgia
interest.
belongs.
To me, interest matters, fan interest, and that's tough to gauge.
Yep.
But you know,
Yep.
I'm putting my vibes finger in the air and taking my temperature on that one.
Okay. Well, then I'm pointing at Oklahoma State. Fill up Gallagher Iba. That place rocks
I
when it's
know, I
going.
agree. That's a
But
great, fully agree. Great home
oh
court.
yeah, that's
Um,
one where Ideally, Lutz will bring that
I hope
that
Lutz
life
gets
back.
that going. I agree.
All right, two more categories. They are the how are they still there? First is coaches at their current job. How is he still there? Coaches, Matt, we should have quite a bit of overlap here. I'll let you kick it off.
Oh, I did players, Jim. This is good. So you do coaches, I'll do players. We'll get a little bit of
Well,
both.
I did players in number 12, category number 11.
I
I
mixed them
did.
up. You're right. I'm stupid. Okay,
Okay.
let me look at.
Well,
I'll think of some coaches right now off the
no,
top. But
you're good.
go.
I will
Who are
give you the
yours?
definitive list.
Okay.
Matt Langle at Colgate is like the most obvious one to me. I don't know if he just interviews poorly. And a lot of these there's probably behind the scenes stuff. That's John Becker at Vermont. How is he still there? That is very much
Russ
something.
Turner, UC Irvine.
Yep, and that's like goes back to one comment in a press conference essentially. James Jones at Yale, maybe he just loves it, but he's been there for like 24 years and has been winning like crazy for the last 10. Shocked he's still around. And then Bob Ritchie at Furman, I included. And for my last spot, fifth spot, a tie between Rob Senderoff and Todd Kowalczyk because they just win, but they don't get the NCAA tournament run that elevates them into
Yep.
everybody's mind and gets them the new job in the Big Ten. So they're
Very
just
much
winners.
victims of the very good mid-major conference that plays conference tournament on a neutral court. And like Toledo's been screwed by the conference tournament. Kent State just hasn't gotten through in the tournament when they've gotten there. Agree on both those. Jim, I'll throw in Chris Mooney from Richmond. Like
Yeah,
the fact that
in
he's
both ways,
retained his
in
yeah,
both
both ways, right?
directions.
Like
Yeah.
retained his job. That's awesome. He's still there, and now he's like been really good the last 2 years. It's like no one's looking at Chris Mooney for like a next. I think a mid-power conference program should give him a real look. Like if Virginia Tech, if Mike Young wants to hang it up, I'd give Chris a call, see if he's interested. I think he
Yeah, I have some worries about Princeton style in the power leagues after
fair.
Bizdella crashed out miserably, but that's also probably not a fair comparison. Mooney's a better coach than him. Okay, so Matt, you did players. This is I did this more like how is he still in school, not how is he
Yeah,
still
that's what
at
I
his
did.
current school. Okay,
Yep.
so this we could have some crossover, but maybe not. So I will let you take the lead.
Hunter Dickinson, Dwan Harris, I think are like the
Those are
no-brainer.
good. Those are
Just
good. I
like
didn't even have them. Those are great.
everyone who's playing Kansas, like those two fucking dudes are still there. Because they both don't look like they're that good, but they actually are very effective. So it kind of adds to your hatred of them. Eddie Lampkin, I can't believe he's still out there lumbering, but he will be this year for who again? I've already forgot.
Syracuse.
Syracuse, thank you.
He's going to look interesting wearing a lot of
The
orange.
orange,
That's going to be
a
fun for
true round
him.
orange out there. That's
Yeah,
good. It's
yeah.
actually very the orange man. How about Marquez Warwick for your Mizzou Tigers? Feels like he started at NKU and John Brandon, like before John Brandon got there. Been
Yeah,
like a
but
lot of
before
really
they
good
even were
NKU
Division
teams.
One, he's
Right.
been there that whole time.
Um, I wrote down Cameron Fletcher, who is like still somehow a redshirt junior by eligibility. Just sort of like a can't believe he might still be in school for 2 more years, given like his whole saga.
Poor guy just keeps tearing his
I
ACLs, man.
know.
It sucks.
I know. Sorry, ACL squad. I don't mean to ruffle some feathers there. Wait, that's all I got. That was my five.
Okay, I will throw five back that I have surprisingly no repeats. Rylan Jones, Matthew. I
Sanford, yeah.
he 2019 he was the next Peyton Pritchard at Utah, and he's had like three iterations of his career since then.
Yep.
I can't believe he's still around. The concussion stuff has been a part of keeping him in school with one medical red shirt. AJ Hogard feels like a guy who's been around forever, was notable at least as a freshman. He's still there. We talked about this guy in the burner recently, but Umar Ballo, he
Yeah.
got to Gonzaga with much fanfare because he was so good for Mali in a FIBA tournament. And then
That's
he
right. I remember
redshirted at
that. Totally.
Gonzaga and
Yes.
was there, and then Arizona, now Indiana. Stephen Crowell of Wisconsin. I just am kind of sick of him running around the paint for Wisconsin. And Matt, my last one, KD Johnson of George Mason. Do you remember where he initially went to school?
I have no idea.
He started at Georgia,
So
played
what was
with
his path? Georgia
Georgia to
to Auburn to,
Auburn,
to
now to George
Mason?
Mason.
Okay.
But I was just like, I went to look because like, oh, has he been at Auburn for 4 years? I was like, oh, I totally forgot about the Georgia season. That guy is a
That's a
wild
good
child.
answer. That's a good answer. I forgot he's on Mason. I haven't really got to my A10 stuff yet. So I mean Wade Taylor is in there for me as well. I guess he's only a senior this year. Only a senior. but guy, it's been there for what feels like a decade.
Yeah, another
Um,
guy from today's team in the burner. Mitchell Saxon was one of my
Mitchell
honorable
Saxon,
mentions.
totally. Yep.
Yep. Okay, Matt, this last team I slipped in just for fun. I will go through it quickly, but I called it the all portal pullouts team. The guys that entered the portal
Nice.
but ultimately returned to their roster, to their
Cam
squad.
Corn. Cam Corn again? Wait, no, sorry, Corn left. Sorry. I mean
Yeah, Corn did
his
not.
teammate,
Jameer
former
Watkins.
teammate. Jameer Watkins, thank you.
Jameer Watkins is on the squad along with Max Shulga of VCU, even though he committed to Villanova and returned to VCU. Maxime Renault of Stanford. Matthew, your boys,
Yes.
Cardinal. Dallin Hall of BYU. You could ceremonially include Richie Saunders there as well. Nate Santos of Dayton. I included, but I mean, there's a ton of names here. Anderson Garcia, Trayvon Brazil, Gibson Jimerson, Utah State had multiple guys do this with Calhoun, Isaac McBride, and Earl Roberts. A lot of pretty good portal pullouts, Matthew. That's the last one I wanted to give a
I
shout out
love
to.
that. Can I throw Keelan Boone in there? Doesn't he qualify?
I don't think he's getting eligibility. They're
Okay.
trying. There's something weird going on
They're
there. I don't
expecting
know.
him to not play, but he might play. It's not the other way around. Okay.
Yeah,
That would be like
it's
his
it's
seventh year. That makes no sense. He shouldn't be playing, right? Like he
it
objectively should probably move
it's
on
one
to
of those
Missouri.
like that rule that if you had to sit out for any period of time, you get a full extra year. And he
Okay.
missed like the first 4 games of a season waiting on a waiver. It's like, that do we have to count that? I don't think so.
No, we
But
certainly,
hey,
certainly don't.
Matthew, that wraps things up for us this week. No
I
Kai,
can't believe we went
no
two
problem.
hour and 15. You're right. I feel like the more people you have, that shorter you go. It's like you
Yeah,
feel
you
like
you have to be more conscious of being snippy with your thoughts. Being concise is a skill. I tell
yeah.
myself that after every pod, and I still stink at it. But
We'll be there by
oh
the time
well.
we master it. So
Yep. That is it, folks. Thank you for tuning in this week. We should have all three boys back next week, unless I choose to sit one out just for fun. But Kai's back in town. Matt will be here. So we pod topic to be determined. We'll keep you posted there. Hope you enjoyed this one. Only 3 more episodes before preview season starts. That's how close college hoops is starting to get. We're under 100 days away. Games are on the horizon. College football is going to be back soon. We're excited. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Okay. Stream's over.
um,
Boom.